Hello Year 1, we are on lesson 6 of our science topic. Now this is the last lesson and so far you've learnt lots about the weather, about the seasons, about trees, hibernation, rain, and today we are learning all about wind direction. By the end of the lesson we will learn what wind is, what the different types of wind are, why we might need wind, and how we can measure wind. The key words are today are blowing, breeze, speed, storm, scale, wind, gust, motion, and meteorologists. Pause the video and see if you can have a go at saying some of these words. Today and throughout this science topic, we have been meteorologists. That was one of our key words. Meteorologists are scientists that study the weather. So we've all done that. We've all been looking and studying the weather. So what is wind? Pause the video and see if you can talk to the person next to you. What is wind? How can we say it in a sentence and describe what it is? Now I have a sentence and I've written that wind is when air moves around us. So wind is when air moves around us. Can you all say that sentence? Wind is when air moves around us. Pause the video and see if you can tell your grown-up what the missing words are. Something is when something moves something us. So what is when what moves what us? So see if you can remember the sentence we just said and fill in the gaps. We now know that wind is the air moving around us, but we can't see air. So how is it that we can tell the wind is blowing if we can't see air? How do you know if you look outside that it's really, really windy? Pause the video and have a discussion. What type of things do you look out for that can tell you it's really windy outside? I have a couple of pictures. I know that it's really, really windy outside if things are moving. So if I see all the plants or if I see all the trees moving around and swaying, I know that it's quite windy. Now I know I've seen lots of children do this, but when we stand in the playground and it's really windy, those children with long hair or even short hair, their hair might start blowing around in the wind. I also know it's windy if all of the leaves on the floor are moving around or if the flags are waving around too. So we can tell if the wind is blowing by looking for movement outside, things that don't normally move. And sometimes you can hear the wind. So if you go outside when it's really windy, what is it that you can hear? If I go outside, I can hear all the leaves rustling, and sometimes I can hear the wind whistling. Can you all have a go at being whistling wind? Now we know what wind is, that it's air that moves around us, and how we can see it and that we know it's windy. Did you know that there are different types of wind? So when we describe it's windy outside, there are actually different words we can use to describe the wind. Now I'm going to tell you the wind in order from the most gentlest to the strongest. The first type of wind we have is a breeze. Can you all say breeze? Now a breeze is really gentle light wind. Now you might be walking around in the summer and it might be a tiny bit windy, and that we call that a breeze, or some people say a summer breeze. It's the most gentle type of wind and it might blow seeds off, or we might see the grass moving only a little bit. The next type of wind we have is a gust. Can you all say that? Gust. Now a gust is a bit stronger than a breeze. It's quite quick, it's quite sudden and strong. Now sometimes you might be walking along and a gust of wind might turn your umbrella inside out. Or you might be walking in the playground and playing, and a gust of wind might blow all of your hair behind you. So it's quite quick and it's quite strong. The next type of wind we have, which is even stronger than a gust, is a gale. Can you all say gale? Now, sometimes you might hear adults say gale force winds, and these can be quite strong. They can break the branches off of trees, that's what we've got in this picture, or the twigs, and they can cause the waves to get really high. Next, we have a storm. Now, a storm and the wind that we find in a storm can cause crashing waves, and they can even cause trees to be uprooted or pulled out. And that's what this picture shows here, an entire big tree being knocked over or pulled out because of how strong the wind is. Now, some of you might have been in a car before or even walked past one of these trees after there has been a storm. Lastly, the most strongest type of wind we have is one in a hurricane. Now, a hurricane is a mixture of huge storms and winds, and we can even see a hurricane from outer space. So if we use our left and right trick we learned in maths, on the right, we can see that all of these trees are being pulled to one side by really, really strong wind. And on the left, we can see what a hurricane looks like from outer space. So we can see how big this storm looks. Your first task, which will be on Teams for you to do, is for you to put the type of wind in order from the weakest, so the most gentle, to the most strongest. Now, if you get stuck, go back in the video because I've used the same pictures to describe the different types of wind. It might also help you to know that if a breeze is the most gentle, then which one of these would you put at the end for the most strong? Have a go and upload this to Teams. So we now know what wind is, and we even know that there are actually lots of different types of wind. But how do we know which direction the wind is blowing in? Now, sometimes I see children outside and they might be facing towards school, they might be looking at the wall, and their hair or their scarves might be blowing to the side of them. And sometimes when they turn around, the hair is no longer blowing to the side, but it's behind them because they're now facing the wind. So how can we find out which direction the wind is blowing in? Pause the video and see if you can tell your grown-up what this thing in the middle is called. Well done if you guessed it. This is called a compass, and meteorologists, scientists who study the weather, use a compass to say where the wind is coming from. Now, it's really, really important that we remember that when we talk about the wind and where it's coming from, we talk about where it's coming from and not where it's coming to. So if I look at these leaves that are blowing around in the wind, I can see that they're not north, they are east. So this is easterly wind, it's coming from the east. It's really interesting to know that we actually need wind. It's not just something that breaks trees, and it's not just something that blows around us when we go outside. It can actually be very, very, very helpful. One of the reasons why it's helpful is because of electricity. Now, we need electricity for lots of things, for cooking our crumpets in a toaster, to watching TV, to charging iPads and phones. We need electricity. And these things over here are called wind turbines, and they can generate, the wind will blow them around, and they generate electricity. Now, this is one of the fastest growing sources of electricity, and it's really quite clever because we're never ever going to run out of wind, and it doesn't produce any harmful waste. So this is the cheapest and one of the best types of energy producers we could use. So wind is amazing, it's never going to run out. The other reason why wind is so important is because it helps disperse, that word means spread out, it helps disperse all the different seeds. Now, when it's windy, lots of seeds blow around and they travel to different places. So the wind is helping seeds to plant in lots of different places, which is fantastic. In our rain lesson, we spoke about efficiency, that word of what is the best way to do something. Now, we figured out that if it was raining, it would be a little bit silly for Miss Foreigner to go outside and put her hands out and see if I could collect how much water there was. So instead, we found out that a rain gauge was one of the better ways to do it. So, how can I tell how windy it is? Is it a good idea for me to stand outside and guess, my hair is blowing around a little bit more today, so I think it's windier today? I don't think that is the most efficient way. So we're going to find out what the most efficient way of telling how windy it is outside. Scientists can use this and other things to help them. Now, this is called a windsock, and we are going to be making one of these at the end of the lesson. Scientists use a Beaufort or Beaufort scale to help understand the wind speed outside. So if we look at this, we've got numbers on the side. We've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 10. And then we've got a description. So 0 is quite calm. Number 2 is a light breeze. We've got 6 is a strong breeze. 7 is nearly a gale. 8 is a gale. And all the way up to 10 is a storm. And then hurricane is underneath. It also tells us what this might look like. So if there is a light breeze and I look outside, I might hear leaves rustling. If there is a strong breeze, I might see large branches swaying around in the wind. Can you all look like you are swaying trees? We are going to be using a similar scale. Our scale is going to be called the Wonderful Wind Scale. And our second task, task 2, is for you to measure the wind speed for a week, kind of like your rain and your weather log. Now this is our scale, so it's not as big as the other one. We've got 3 numbers, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now 0 is really calm. If you look outside, there's hardly any movement in the trees. So when you do this, if you look outside and there's no movement, you're going to put number 0. Number 1 is breezy. So if you go outside and you can hear leaves rustling on the branches or you can see them moving around on the floor, you know to put number 1. Number 2 is gale. So actually, if you go for a walk or you look outside and there are twigs broken from the trees and the whole tree is swaying around, you're going to put number 2. And the last one, number 3, is stormy. So if you can see really strong winds and even trees that have fallen over, you know it was number 3. It was really stormy. So you're going to make something that will help you. The first part of what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to record it. So like the weather log, on the front of 2 or 3 pieces of paper folded in half, you are going to put the scale, which I will also put on Teams, and you are going to write Monday and then put it was. So when I did this, on Monday, I looked outside and there was the trees weren't moving. So I put 0, it was calm, there was no trees moving. I couldn't see any leaves blowing and all the trees are still. So I put 0 calm and maybe put a little note about what was happening. You could even draw a picture of what yours looks like, but you need the number and what it is. The second part of this is to make a windsock. So for a windsock, you are going to need the inside of a toilet roll, so the toilet roll tube. You are going to need some string or something to hang it up with. You're going to need some scissors. You're going to need some paper. Now I've put white paper here, but you could use coloured paper or coloured pens to decorate this paper. You will need some glue or tape. Step 1, you are going to need to cut some strips out of paper and you're going to need to save them for later. So this is up to you. You can either do white paper and decorate it or just cut some strips of coloured paper. But a really simple and quick step, cut some strips of paper. Now you might need an adult to help you do that and it doesn't really matter how long they are. Step 2 is something that the grown-up will need to do. So adults or grown-ups, you're going to need to help this. You will need to pierce a hole in either side of a tube. So one here and one on the other side. Next, you are going to need to measure, so you might need a ruler as well, and cut a piece of string or something to tie around 30 centimetres long. So it could be ribbon. You will end up needing to put this through and tying it. So this needs to be long enough that you can tie it and hang it up somewhere. Step 4 is for you to thread the string through the holes. So the 2 holes that the adults made, you are going to need to pop the string through one and then put the end through the other as well. If you find this tricky, you can ask an adult to help you. So adults, you need to make sure that these holes are big enough to put the string or ribbon through. Next, you are going to tie a knot so it looks like a circle because this is what you're going to hang up. Adults, you might need to help with this again. And then it comes a really fun decorating part. So step 6 is for you to tape or glue, it's up to you which one you use, the strips of your paper that you might have already decorated onto the bottom of the tape so they hang off. Now, one trick is for you to glue all around the bottom and then stick them on. Or, like this, you can lay a piece of tape out and stick the paper to it. Now, this little gap here still has sellotape on it, which means I could roll my tube in it and all of my pieces of paper will stick. Your final step will be to decorate it and hang it outside. So I've just got singular strips, but you might want to cut lots of bits into your strips. You might want to colour them. You might want to make your windsock look really, really cool. Now, if you hang this outside, if it's really windy, you're going to see this blow around. So if you're in one of these places where there's not very many leaves, if this is blowing around lots, then you know that it's not just going to be very calm. It's actually quite windy. Please, could you upload your exciting and creative windsocks? We really, really look forward to your log and your windsocks. Have fun and be amazing weather scientists. Goodbye, everyone.